Republican presidential candidate Governor John Kasich of Ohio spoke about teen alcohol and drug abuse at the Communities for Alcohol and Drug-Free Youth headquarters in Plymouth, New Hampshire. This is an hour.
There's room for about 3 people in there.
There he is.
All right, great. Where am I supposed to go? Or do, or what?
I'm going to introduce you.
Okay.
This is Governor Kasich. We'd like to welcome Governor Kasich and his family, his daughters Emma and Reese, and wife Karen. They've traveled.
And there's my third daughter, Megan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Third daughter, Megan.
And Megan, the third
Forgotten.
daughter, friend of the family. This is Katie. It's Communities for Alcohol and Drug-Free Youth. We call it Katie. It's a small non-profit with a big mission, which is basically to keep kids off drugs and alcohol. Our board members in attendance today include Michelle Aguiar, Mary Cooney, who's over here, Leslie Dion, who is in the entryway, Maureen Ebner, Mark Halloran, Amy Muller, I didn't see Amy, and Paul Paris. Our executive director is Deb Narrow, and she would definitely be here, except that she's on vacation and couldn't.
Where is she?
Florida.
I'm in Florida with Liz.
Let me ask, let me make a recommendation. I think you ought to add a couple people to the board who are famous people in New Hampshire, particularly athletes. I don't know if you have any. I'm sure you do. Do we have any former, Dartmouth football or basketball player? Or we need to have, we gotta have. Well, I'm all for you if you're raising money, but what I'm really for is credibility with these kids. And I think you need to have some youth, even if you put them on the board and you make them sort of honorary board members or whatever, because we got to be in all the schools. That's where you get to these kids, and there's got to be somebody that can really relate to them. Am I right, girls? Huh?
Yeah, because no one's gonna listen to
Adults.
people who see it as parents.
Right.
Because people would have spent fun.
Right. So think about that a little bit.
All right. Well, our Youth Advisory and Advocacy Council, we call them the YACs, are going to do a little thing for you that they
Got great
call
names here, yeah. Would you move over on this so I can see you?
These kids are Molly Brown, Nora Doyle, and Mac Doyle. I also wanted to mention that Rosa Bailey, Christian Bixby,
Right now?
and Troy Warner are here. And our staff members,
Okay, I'm sorry I didn't hear you because I was talking to me. How do you want to do this?
You can put this in your pocket. Put that on your collar.
I don't have a call. Here, would you do it? That's what you get paid all this money for.
Put this right here.
Okay? All right, so go ahead again.
All right.
These two young ladies are going to make a presentation.
well, and this young man.
Okay. And
You guys
what,
ready?
who are you guys? Tell me.
My name's Molly Brown. I'm 17 and homeschooled.
I'm Nora Doyle. I'm 17, and I'm a student at Plymouth Regional High School, which is right down the road.
Okay.
I'm Mac Doyle. I'm 15, and I also go to Plymouth Regional High School.
Cool. So you guys are going to make a little presentation.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Well, let's hear it. Let's do it.
Right.
Step out of the way here.
I don't know if I can get it.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for coming and investing your time to speak with us about this really important issue of the opiate drug crisis. It's an honor to have you here and to be able to speak with you about what we see and experience as teenagers every day. We're the, as he said, Community for Alcohol and Drug-Free Youth, Youth Advisory and Advocacy Council, also known as the KDYAC program.
And the YAC program empowers and encourages us to inspire our community and peers to address problems relating to substance abuse. And we keep very busy with hands-on projects in the community. And this past October, we were honored to accept the 2015 New Futures Youth in Action Advocacy Award for projects we completed this past year on the local and statewide level.
So there are 3 core steps we take as YACs: education, skills, and action. During the education component, we are provided with the background information on a topic that we are interested in, and we research and discuss the issue to better understand the problem. We develop skills needed to create change. Some skills we've learned in the YAC include using media tools, gathering research-based information and data, and organization of these facts into presentations, and learning how to speak so people will listen.
We then take action. We're provided with opportunities to put our leadership skills into use. So in April 2015, we testified in front of the New Hampshire State Senate Finance Committee on the need for increased funding for prevention throughout
So the
New
3 of you did?
Hampshire. One other person with us.
So 4 of you. Good.
I was not there.
Okay.
It was one of the rest of the
Okay.
Just the 3 of us. So the alcohol fund originally took 5% of gross sales and was invested back into prevention and treatment programs. Over the years, the alcohol sales increased, but the alcohol fund was never fully funded for prevention or treatment, and was actually, most prevention programs were defunded. So
Wait. Start that again. What happened there, young lady?
the alcohol fund was designed to take 5% of the gross profits
Yeah.
from alcohol sales and put it back into prevention and treatment programs. And over the years, the alcohol sales increased, but the alcohol fund was never fully funded. So we testified to bring funding back up to prevention programs.
Hey, Tom?
He
Right
stepped
there?
out.
Oh. See if he could step back in.
Please.
Hey, thank you. That's an interesting point. We need to make a note of that. Hey, Tom? He's not here yet? He knows all these people, so I wish we had had somebody here like Bruce. But that's so it was supposed to be 5%, and even though the fund, the amount grew, the 5% is not 5% anymore.
Correct.
Yeah, the way it works, I'm a state representative.
Oh, you are? Perfect.
And what happened was, Ned Gordon, who is now a judge in New Hampshire, or Richie was a senator, and he put in this provision that 5% of the liquor profits would go toward prevention
Right.
and services. But the way New Hampshire works, we have very limited budget. As you know, we have no income or sales tax.
Right.
And there's totally unwilling, there is no political will to change that.
But if it was established at 5%, it should have
Yeah.
grown.
So every
They took some of
year-
the money away from it?
Every year,
I see.
we change the percentage.
Oh.
Rob the money that should have gone, and sometimes completely robbed it. And sometimes it's been growing lately over the last few years.
See, the reason when I look at the alcohol and the 5%, that while alcohol is a big issue for us, that 5% could be used to fight the prescription drug.
Oh, sure.
And houses and treatment and all that. So they took some of the 5% and use it they divert some of
They
it.
divert it, mostly, yeah.
We're famous for that.
Well, it all, and the thing is, when you get yourself in a bind, it's kind of easy to ignore what you view as some of these soft things. But it's like pay me now or pay me later.
Exactly.
So, very, very interesting. But look, and the other thing that New Hampshire people, that they did here, that is expanding Medicaid was a big plus, and I got to think that brought a lot of resources to help on this issue.
Yes, we're counting on that.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, thank you. I'm just learning. You don't mind if I ask questions,
No, not
do you?
at all.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so the idea of that was just if alcohol the sales are part of the issue, then we'd make them part of the solution as well. And that was the
Good.
goal for that.
So we're also given a chance to mentor the Launched Youth Entrepreneurship Program members, which is Katie's youth employment program, and other community youth as well. We also produce videos and PSAs to raise awareness, and this past October we completed a social norms campaign at Plymouth Regional High School during Red Ribbon Week, which took place October 23rd through the 30th. And this campaign showed that the majority of teenagers at Plymouth Regional High School do not use alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. And this campaign really empowered our peers to own their decision making, to just say no to drugs, And it also empowers us all to ask questions and to really think about issues and to know why we shouldn't do drugs. So ultimately, we're youth prevention leaders.
Although the majority of our community's youth are not using substance, this isn't necessarily the fact for other communities. Adolescent substance use is America's #1 public health problem. And unfortunately, this problem is growing. 90% of Americans with a substance abuse problem started smoking, drinking, or using other drugs before the age of 18. We would like to share with you some information specifically about New Hampshire, but we know these issues are just as prevalent in every state, city, and community nationwide.
New Hampshire ranks in the top 10 states for past month marijuana use among 12 to 20-year-olds. It ranks second in the nation for past month alcohol use among 12 to 20-year-olds, and 1 in 6 New Hampshire teens have abused prescription drugs.
1 in 6?
Yes, sir.
Because of these alarming rates, we think it is unwise for New Hampshire to legalize marijuana. In this time where there is a national drug crisis, the solution definitely is not to legalize another drug.
In the upcoming session of the New Hampshire legislature, a marijuana decriminalization bill is coming forward again. And we believe, if this is passed, that there will be a ripple effect of negative consequences, because perception of risk is a strong prevention strategy. And when the perception of risk is high, substance abuse declines. We are concerned about the message if marijuana is decriminalized. Will decriminalization lower the perception of risk, which is already way too low? And if so, will the use of marijuana climb higher than it already is?
A teenager's brain is wired to take risks. I'm sure this is not surprising to anyone. This past year, during Katie's annual Prevention Summit, Michael Nerney, a national speaker on brain research, presented Risky Business, why adolescents love risk-taking and how we can help manage it. He explained the science behind teenage behavior and why we love risk-taking.
3 of the facts that he had shared with us really stuck with all of us. One was our emotional intensity is about 2 to 4 times greater than adults. So when something happens, either positive or negative, we feel it 2 to 4 times greater. 2, we seek out emotional rewards. So if something feels good to us, that's what we'll be doing. And number 3, our brains are focused on the here and now. We don't really think a lot about future consequences. And that's where adults come in. In order to keep us safe, perception of risk and disapproval needs to be way higher, not lower. Parents, adults, policymakers, and leaders need to be aware that young people need guidance in knowing what we should and should not do.
Marijuana is a gateway drug and a risk multiplier. Whether people believe it or not, the fact is that marijuana introduces kids to a high that can lead to drug dependency. And marijuana also puts kids around people who use hard drugs. Many people in recovery confirm that marijuana is a gateway drug, and in fact, it was their gateway drug. Certainly not everyone who uses marijuana becomes addicted. However, the vast majority of those in treatment for addiction began their drug use with marijuana.
And today's marijuana is not the same drug of the 1960s, where THC levels were only 2 to 3%. Since legalization in Colorado and Washington State in 2012, THC levels increased to 13%, and the levels continue to rise. This past year in 2015, THC levels were averaging 23 to 30%. Marijuana use continues to evolve, and it is becoming more risky, and not only with the higher THC levels, but how it's being used.
Youth substance abuse should not be looked at as harmless and a rite of passage. If adult attitudes are permissive, then the perception of risk is low, and it serves as a green light for teenagers and other youth to use. The human brain isn't fully developed until the mid-20s. Adults need to remember that the teen brain is a work in progress. When drugs are introduced at a young age, it wires their brain for addiction. Any substance use, including alcohol, marijuana, and prescription drugs that a young person misuses, can drastically affect their lives and in some sad cases end them.
All drug use, including underage drinking, is a risk multiplier for addiction. If you look at this image, right here, it shows the escalation of drug use during the teen years. This is known as the escalator chart because of the drastic surge in use between the ages of 12 to 20. Research shows that 9 out of 10 individuals struggling with addiction began drinking, smoking, and using other drugs before the age of 18. So if we can prevent teen drug abuse, and we can, then we can prevent drug addiction.
Low perception of risk is just one of the big reasons why young people are using. In New Hampshire and nationally, the number one reason why youth are using drugs is stress. Teenagers are self-medicating, and when quantity and frequency of use increases, the need for the substance also increases. And this is called dependency, and it leads to addiction. So more stress equals more use, and it becomes a constant cycle. This is a loud wake-up call that youth need help because they're learning to, they need to learn healthy coping mechanisms and strategies.
There are a lot of pressures being a teenager, and if we don't have the proper tools to deal with the stress, many will continue to self-medicate. Remember, our brains are a work in progress, and if we don't have the facts and proper supports, we will improvise, and that can lead to long-term negative consequences.
There has been an alarming increase in drug-related deaths in New Hampshire. Substance abuse does not discriminate. It crosses all socioeconomic sectors, races, and religions. In the last 5 years alone, drug-related deaths have been steadily increasing. In fact, in 2015, there were 400 overdose deaths in the state of New Hampshire.
The solution to the problem is prevention. That's why we're here. Prevention breaks the cycle of crime, it protects children, it saves lives, prevents addiction, and it contains costs.
We think that the best representation of our national drug crisis is the game Whack-A-Mole, which is depicted right over here. This image shows how we as a nation are reactive to problems in our country instead of proactive. The Whack-A-Mole shows how we are reacting to the heroin epidemic. The mole is up and all attention is directed at fixing that one problem. But this singular reaction is not a solution because the heroin epidemic stems from a larger substance abuse problem. The heroin epidemic was most likely preventable. It resulted from overprescribing painkillers and prescription opioid painkillers. Once hooked on opioids, the next stop was heroin because it's far cheaper, easier to access, and essentially a bigger bang for the buck. But what is interesting about this whack-a-mole image is that all drug problems are still present, but because they're not seen as a crisis or a dire threat, they are overlooked or dismissed as less problematic because we are focused on only one thing at a time. We keep bringing solutions back to a more comprehensive level. Heroin use is part of the larger substance abuse problem. Nearly all people who are addicted to heroin also use at least one other drug. Most use at least 3 other drugs before experimenting with heroin. All drug use is dangerous and can lead to heroin use. According to the Centers for Disease Control, people who are addicted to alcohol are 2 times more likely to be addicted to heroin, marijuana 3 times more likely, and prescription painkillers 40 times more likely to be addicted to heroin. Yes, we are comparing whack-a-mole to the national drug crisis, but substance abuse is not a game. I don't know about anyone else, but when I play a game of whack-a-mole, I do not stick to the rules and just use the padded hammer. I go in with 2 hands and most likely a couple of friends who also have 2 hands. So in other words, I build a whole team to conquer the whack-a-mole game. But let's talk about prevention playing whack-a-mole. Prevention in New Hampshire and in many other states has only a single person equipped with a very heavy padded hammer. And this is not good enough because prevention also needs a team approach. In order to get our arms around the national drug crisis, we must be able to have 4 times the help and focus not only on the problem at the forefront, but also have all hands on deck knowing that another problem or mole will be popping up soon.
Another example on how our country reacts to whack-a-mole theory is remediation. This is also known as the cleaning up the mess. Instead of investing in smart, sensible, cost-effective solutions, we wait until we have a devastating mess and are forced to throw a lot of money at the problem. It is significantly cheaper to prevent a problem than to deal with a full-out crisis. If we can prevent addiction, then we can save lives and money.
Prevention in New Hampshire and across the nation could benefit from increased youth prevention programs by implementing curriculums to educate youth, adults, and families. Increased funding for prevention would also provide alternative recreation activities and create programs for outlying communities because isolation is also a major risk factor.
We also need to greatly expand outreach and prevention media campaigns. Prevention is going up against a multi-million-dollar megaphone, alcohol and drug industries, and smart psychological marketing to influence young people to begin using, known as the future client. Katie has an innovative media campaign toolkit called the Prevention Accelerator that we're marketing to prevention coalitions across the country to increase awareness of the substance abuse problem and to connect the dots to solutions. Remember whack-a-mole? Prevention needs a strong team, nationally, for maximum influence, and the first step is to increase community awareness of the problem and engage the grassroots and policymakers like we're doing right now.
We are examples of why and how prevention works. Involvement with Katie has raised our awareness on the risks and the dangers of substance use. We've learned not only how it affects our brains and our bodies, but how detrimental it is to our health, our relationships, and our future success. and it's empowered us to be drug-free so we can lead by example. We know as a presidential candidate you have many issues at the forefront other than the drug crisis, but we believe the addiction crisis in large part begins with young people and greatly affects other national issues like education, the workforce, and the general health, safety, and welfare of our country. We are young people who want the best for our country and for our futures. We want our peers to know what we know, to have the opportunities that we all have, and to be able to lead healthy, successful lives. We see this issue as a generational crisis. We're very concerned about our future. We need to fix this problem before the trend continues to grow. We know as governor, you've been and a national leader, and we really thank you for that. Addiction affects everyone. It ripples out from the person using, to their family, to the co-workers and acquaintances, and so on. It's been called a family disease. Now we see it more like a national disease. It touches everyone, really. Drug addiction is limiting the potential of our peers and ultimately the future of our entire nation. I care about prevention because I lost an aunt as well as a cousin to substance abuse. I also care about prevention because I want to raise awareness and live and learn in a safe community.
I care because drug and alcohol use is affecting us personally. It's taking away our generation's potential and leaving behind addiction, increased mental illness, and other problems in its place.
I care because this significantly affects our generation, and we want to have a secure, sustainable, and successful future. Prevention programs give an alternative to following the crowd or believing that everyone is using substances. It debunks myths and empowers us to be part of the solution. Prevention is powerful education. It gives us the choice. After we know the facts and weigh our options, we're better informed and we're able to make better decisions.
We're always told don't do drugs and just say no, but prevention programs actually explain why and not just because I said so. Speaking as a teenager, it is confusing. There are a lot of conflicting messages and in the media and in school, and it can be really hard to say no. Many in our generation see alcohol and drugs as a rite of passage because marijuana is being legalized, which is sending mixed messages, and alcohol and other drugs are glorified in the media, movies, television, and in music. Prevention empowers us to ask questions and really understand why we shouldn't mess with drugs.
Some kids are lucky enough to have parents that talk to them about not using drugs or alcohol, but many don't have that support system at home. Prevention's not just a feel-good method of information. It answers for us real-life, important questions that we need to know in this extremely confusing world. It's time to support youth prevention programs. Our potential is limitless. We just need investment of sound policy and practice, and we'll be empowered to make good choices. Our country needs a leader who wants to protect all of us, and that includes investing in comprehensive solutions to promising futures for our youth. We want a leader to encourage and inspire us to live healthy and successful lives and keep the focus on what is really important, our potential and our future. Thank you for having us.
Governor Kasich, would you like to make some comments?
My wife talked about that. She's been involved in a lot of this too.
Well, I can really appreciate what you're saying, and I'm very impressed with the three of you, too. I don't know that I could have stood up and done that at your age, so you're very poised.
Thank you.
In Ohio, one of the things that the governor's administration has started is a program called Start Talking, because the research, as you probably know, shows that young people are 50% less likely to start using drugs if an adult, a respected adult in their lives, starts talking with them at an early age about why not to use these drugs. So the Start Talking program puts together all of the resources that are out there in the state and through various venues gets them to teachers, to families, to people in the community who come in contact with youth and help them do just that, start talking about why this is not a good idea. So that's one of the programs that we have seen work and that I've been involved with. And it always touches me because when we do go out to do a Start Talking presentation, we usually have a family member who has lost someone to the effects of an overdose. And it always touches me that they will take their time and come out and share their experience to help save others. So I appreciate that of you.
Well, I think one thing we got to do.
We got to pick this up. Today is Martin Luther King Day. He was a heck of a leader. Can you mind if I stick this over here on this easel? Can we fit it on here too? let's take this and put this, I don't know if I'll probably knock the thing down here. Here we go.
There we go.
So, sweetie, you're right. You're right about the schools, but I have to tell you, we invited 5,000 people, the Attorney General and I, on a call, because we have this Start Talking program, like, you know, and I'm going to be very interested in what you think the most important messages are. We invited 5,000 people who were some sort of school entity. I think we had 200 that got on the call. I mean, we're not taking this seriously. Our leaders in the schools, I mean, I can just tell you in my state, I'm disappointed. I mean, how can we have, we know that these programs of just, see, they say they need to have descriptions of why they shouldn't do drugs. Actually, what the evidence says is if they just hear don't do drugs, they won't do it. 50% less, you know, less chance. Now, I'm going to be interested in hearing what they all say about what's the most effective message. But the schools are the place to go. And by the way, I figured out who you should ask to be on the board. Seth Meyers. He's on television. Ask him to be an honorary board member of this. Let these young people send him a note. If they can't get through to him, we'll help. And I think it'd be great to have a guy like Seth Meyers talking about the need to fight this. When you know who he is? He's a big TV star. You don't know who he is. Well, listen, I was with Leo last week, and I would get him, but I'm not that close to him. You know who I mean? Leo DiCaprio. So anyway, so any of you, what do you think is the most effective thing that you can hear when you're a young person about not doing drugs?
I think there's actually a presentation that came to our school a few months ago that was done by an EMT from the city of Manchester about heroin, because as we've mentioned, that is a very prevalent issue at the moment. And the presentation, I believe, was perfectly engineered for a high school audience, because this man was entertaining. It was a little comical in some places, but there was a fear factor involved as well, which is something that increases credibility when you're talking to a young audience, because they don't take a lot of things seriously. But I know he had a PowerPoint and some of the images of people who had done heroin after they had overdosed and were all bloated, and it was disgusting. And it was perfect, because it scared people into not doing heroin. And this is such a big issue that this is not an extreme, and it's something that has to be done.
So if you girls were at a party and somebody said, here, take this pill, what would you think, Reese?
What I think?
Why would you not do it, or would you do it? I know you wouldn't. Okay, why? Because I told you not.
That's really it.
Is that really it? How about you, Emma?
Same with Reese.
You would say because I told you not to do it?
Just because you say it every day.
I say it all the time. But let me tell you,
I think,
go ahead.
like, people, if you go to a school, you can't have someone, like, older, like, middle-aged or up. I think you have to have, like, younger, like, hip people. Because, like, when people come into our school and they're, like, middle-aged men are usually the only ones coming in, like, people are just kind of, like, take them as a joke.
Do they?
Because it's kind of like, well, why should I listen to you?
How about a cool, hip, middle-aged guy like me? But here's the thing. See, what we do is, in regard to the youth, is what we do is we send talking points, and the teacher delivers the message, not somebody else that comes into the school. You can't do, or their peers. So we also have a program where the chief, and I think we've shared a lot of this with your folks up here, where we take our highway patrol and they go in and they talk to the student athletes, and they recruit them as ambassadors in the school, and then they tell their friends, you know, don't be doing drugs. How about you, Megan? You see it in the school, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I go to a private school, but I go to a public school, so things are a lot different. And I don't know, since they're taught a lot about, like, the Bible and, like, God and stuff, I feel like a lot of the people in their school have, like, their minds set straight on, like, more of the right things to do. But a lot of the kids in my school are just kind of do whatever they want, and their parents don't, like, guide them as well, because they don't have God and stuff in their lives.
How come you don't do drugs, Megan?
I just think it can really mess up your future.
Yeah.
Your
Who
life.
told you that? Your mom? Your mom will kill you. You do drugs. I know your mom.
Governor, we had a program that Katie helped put together where was a heroin addicted boy, Alex, and he is an example of this, a young, you know, he's now in college, and he kicked heroin, but he was a middle class kid.
No, that's right.
No problem, and he started in grade school and started with marijuana, and he kept being offered more and more and more. His parents had no idea what was going on, and he suggested what he thought is one of the biggest deterrents is just what you were saying, Reese, is you show people in detox, show what it's really like. You know, not just, I went this and I did how many, weeks, and then I did a follow-up and I did all this stuff. Show them what it's really like.
See, the deal is take that young man or take Sam, our friend, and take so many parents and everything. There's not enough of them to go around. That's why you got to create a network. I think it should be like 2 or 3 places. It should be in every church, every synagogue, where they ought to talk about this, like a couple times a month. And also in the schools. Because all you have to do is have an email that gives you talking points for the week, And the teacher just looks at it. You don't need a lot of money to do this. You just stand up and say, okay, let me explain to you. If you get hooked on these drugs, your future is going to be ruined because you're going to have weight on your back that you're never going to let go of. I mean, this is a haunting, horrible thing, and kids will hear it. I mean, if your third grade teacher is telling you don't do drugs, you're going to listen to your third grade teacher. But yet we have not been able to fully engage the schools in this, and it drives me insane because it doesn't take much. If I had a call about how we're going to spend some more money, I'd have had 5,000 people on the call. And I hate to put it on the schools, but what are you going to do? Where else are you going to go? Now, we also send emails to the parents, but it's kind of hard. Look, we're doing everything we can possibly do, but I believe these big organizations where kids are the ones that have to hear it. And just last week, I was up here at Hotel Washington. We weren't there, Tom, but Bruce was there and Gordon was there. So this guy, he comes up to me, he says, my daughter, I think it was the daughter, is that right, who it was? My daughter is a recovering heroin addict. And her daughter, 13 years old, was there. So I see this little girl, and I put my arm around her. Now, maybe I got her a little bit spooked, but probably not. I mean, I put my arm around her, and I just looked at her, and I told her aunt, and we got our people. I said, this girl needs help. Because you're 13 years old, and your mother is a heroin addict. What do you think's going to happen with you if somebody doesn't talk to you? So you got counseling now that's involved here. We got friends who are very wealthy. Our friend's sister has a son and a daughter, all of whom overdosed, right? And they got 4 kids. Think about the extent of this.
They had 4 kids.
They've been taken now, the 4 kids. I mean, it could go on and on. We could tell a billion stories about this. I think everybody knows it's real. So now, what do? I think this is a really great program that you've organized it like this. Maybe we could have them start something like this, but I've just got to keep doubling down on the schools.
Yeah,
and
one thing, Governor, the kids mentioned is that Katie has put together what we call the toolkit.
Yeah.
It is this huge thing that other schools have purchased, and they have thumb drives and everything for messages to go out every week. There are articles in the paper and information, and a lot of schools are buying it. Says, oh, good, we want a prevention program. We just didn't know how to go about it. And it's been sold around the country. So.
Yeah, I would just find out how many of your schools are really doing it. Maybe your schools are different than mine, but mine have not shown the kind of interest that they should. Yeah. We actually had a superintendent. We had a superintendent in the school district where she went who said drugs are not an issue in our school. Am I right?
The first one.
Yeah, now we got the best guy.
The new guy came in
Paul Imhoff, right? I mean, he's the best, and he gets it.
That's crazy. Drugs are the issue, and he has a totally different attitude.
So if we can, and so we would want to look at the packet, but I tell you, you got to use large organizations, the boys club, the girls club. If we can get the information out there, we'll solve this problem. Let me tell you what's really happened. I mean, I've been working on this for years. What happened was doctors were willy-nilly, young people won't, but to the folks who are a little older, you know what they did? You go to the dentist, they take out your wisdom teeth and they give you 25 OxyContin. And what's happened is people have been getting hooked on that drug. Now that the whole country's focused on how we can limit prescription drugs, you can't get them. See, in our state, we've seen prescribing dosage drop because now we have protocols. I mean, we actually, if you write a prescription, we know if you're out of bounds, and the limits have been set by physicians. So if you have chronic pain or acute pain, we're watching you. And we also have a medical board now. We'll take your license away. I mean, we are not screwing around with this. You can no longer go from emergency room to emergency room. You can't do it anymore. And then we have a link that hooks the pharmacy with the pharmacy board so we can monitor everything. Used to be you had to log out and log on again to report. Now there's an interface where you go right to the pharmacy board. And we fixed the pharmacy board too. These are all really great things. But what's happening now is the price of prescription drugs, because we've limited the supply, is gone up. So what happens? People can get heroin at next to nothing. We've lost almost a whole generation to this prescription drug business. And by the way, Grandma, clean out your cabinets. Clean out those cabinets, because it is, I believe that the single biggest entry to heroin, you know, the fastest way to get there is prescription drugs. I can't get them. I can't get OxyContin. I can't get the high, so now I go to heroin. Now we have a problem in Ohio with another drug. Now listen to this one. This is how wacky this is. There is a drug that they give you if you're dying of cancer. It's called fentanyl. I may have said it wrong.
No, that's it.
I mean, I'm not sure, I may have not pronounced it right. But they figured out that they can take that drug and lace it with heroin to give you, you know, a even stronger effect. That means that there are people that are actually taking this stuff, making money, taking it out of the hospitals. I mean, it's just nuts. It's like every time you get your hand on it, there's another amoeba out here. But I believe it's busting the drug dealers. And you know, here's another thing. Isn't it interesting? El Chapo, right? You wait and watch how they try to glamorize this guy. And I liked what you said about the multiple messages. You know, you watch a movie today, or I've watched a couple movies on the plane that all the people that are with me, they love these movies, you need to watch them. You know what they're all about? Violence and drugs. That's what they're all about. And it's crap, because it just keeps sending messages to these young people. You know, so I mean, anyway, we've got a great band come out of their girls' school, Worthington Christian. They're called 21 Pilots. You ever heard of them? Well, they know the founder of the band, and they don't glamorize any of that stuff. They're good. You like 21 Pilots?
Well, they're pretty good.
Well, it's all about being stressed out. Is that right, girls? That's their song. But they talk about how to deal with it. And, well, we'll have you meet them sometime if they ever come up here. Anyway, I've said enough. I love what these young people are doing. But we got to bust the drug dealers. We got to rehab people when they are on drugs. And let me tell you, Mary, what we've been able to do by taking dollars. Well, frankly, we've moved our addiction services into the prisons, and we treat people and we release them into the community, and our recidivism rate is less than 20%. So there are really significant things happening, but we got a real raging crisis, but we know it now. So I think we're going to move. I think we're not going to be here. I think we're all beginning to realize it. But we got to get the network in place that sends the same message out over and over and over again. So if you have better luck with your schools than we're having, you tell me what the secret is, because I got to figure it out. Oh, we're going to take it to the colleges and the universities now too. And they will be more cooperative, because I will make them more cooperative. And we've got to stick some more things in the budget, get these local schools. But we can get the schools, you know.
The great thing about Katy too is they use college, because like we have a college right in town, and they use
Yeah.
college interns, you know, to work with Katy and work with the kids.
I think it's great. Girls, you want to say any more? No? 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 Why aren't you in school today? Sweetie, what else? Why don't you wrap it up?
I don't have anything else.
Yeah, you do.
No,
Yes. Oh, you got questions, yes.
It's always going to be one person dealing with one other person.
You were right.
And you can do all the stuff from the top you want to do until you get the people whose boots are on the ground to do it one-on-one or one-on-two. You're not going to get anywhere.
You know, speaking of Dr. King, you know, and all that message, you know, we are our neighbor's keepers. Maybe we don't think we are, but we better be. Because whether it's violence, whether it's drugs, we better keep an eye on what's happening around us. And you're right about that. You know, I think there is, I wrote a book many years ago, and I talked about what's called the home run theory. If we can't hit a home run with the bases loaded, sometimes we think we shouldn't even bat. And the fact is if you save one life, if you talk to one kid, one at a time, 2, 3, right? That's how, you're right. You're right. So you need to stick your nose in these kids' business when you're at the restaurant. You go see them, I think. What do you think? I agree. And all you say to them is, please don't do drugs, because, you know, I don't want to see you get crushed. Stay away from the drugs. You know what my staff tells me? When you go to a school, don't tell them not to do drugs, because you sound like an old man, and that's not appeal. You know what? Forget it. Who cares? If by my saying that, there's one kid that doesn't do drugs and his life is saved, who may grow up and come up with a cure for Alzheimer's. So I'm going to keep telling them. Do I have your permission? Absolutely. Okay, you hear that, Shrimpf? Okay.
Okay, one thing, Governor, that in the Alex story, that when he talks to the kids at schools, high schools and so on, one thing we found, that after he does his presentation, it's done with an actress who sort of represents the story, and then he takes questions. After the program, so the program's over, everybody files out, then they start dribbling back in and saying, where can I get help? I have a friend, I have a sister, I have a mother.
It's true. It's just heartbreaking.
We realize we need to have someone there who say, okay, go to so-and-so, here's the number to call, because it's affecting everybody.
Yeah, you know, and when you think about that, the heartache and the heartbreak, I mean, this little 13-year-old girl, I'm looking at her, and, you know, and I can see she's ready to collapse. You know, her mom, a heroin addict. Well, she's 13 years old. Imagine think about what it would have been like think about what it would have been like if your mother was an addict. Girls, I mean, anyway.
Governor, our superintendent is here today, Superintendent Mark Halloran.
Are you of the school?
Yes.
Of the school.
Yeah. Katie's very much a part of our school. Our school is literally down the path. So the work that the kids do is in our building every day. It's
great.
And it's a terrific opportunity. I don't know about those Ohio superintendents. When our governor calls, we pick the phone up and work.
Well, you know,
together.
part of it is the schools have so many things that are going on, right? And the open rate has been pretty good. And, you know, you think I'm standing up here saying this? I'm not going to get a bunch of people angry at me in Ohio? Okay? You think I don't know that? But that doesn't matter to me, because this is a crisis. And, you know, we have the open rate. It's a pretty good open rate. But, you know, to go invite 5,000 people on a call and you get 200, tell me how you would feel. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have great superintendents out there. This guy, Paul Imhoff at the Upper Arlington High School, he's fantastic. And maybe part of it is that they don't think they can make a difference. I don't know what explains it, but I don't like it. And I got to keep at it. And I give a lot of credit to the Attorney General, because he thinks about this all the time, as our Lieutenant Governor does, our Highway Patrol. We just got to do better at getting people Why have you paid so much attention to it?
Because it's here in our community. And it's important that in the schools that we address all of our community issues, not an academic education, but also how to be a good citizen,
Yeah.
and the responsibility you have as an adult. And I think the work that Nora and Mac and all the kids here do is just incredible because their peers listen to them. And I was particularly pleased, Nora, to hear you talk about the presentation we had from the Manchester EMT. We got a lot of grief for that presentation. It was too gory. A number of parents were very upset. But I still think it was the right thing to do. I think the message got out there, and it showed people at the end of this. And I think we did the right thing.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they get mad at you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, what are you going to do? Go hide in a hole somewhere? Life is short.
You're right.
You know, life is short. And sometimes, you know, it's got to be followed on, though. Because, you know, they hear a presentation and then 2 months later, just like they say, they're wired. That was something that I really got out of this. They're wired for risk. It's a really good point. So we got to be constantly going, right? Then I think once we get beyond it, because I actually think the prescription drugs are extremely serious. I think that, and I agree with the other issues. I mean, you know, I agree with all that, but that prescription drug problem, and if we can crank that down over time, then I think we're going to have better results. That's my sense of it. Do you agree with that?
I do agree, and I think the coordination of the pharmacies, the pharmaceutical board, and the physicians and the state licensing people, I think those interfaces are huge. I think for a number of years people acted as islands. And so, as you said, if you had your wisdom teeth taken out, well here's your prescription, and call me if you have dry socket, or if you have this or you have that. But they were pretty free and easy, and now...
And in our state, the medical board looked the other way. I appointed a guy who's not a doctor to the medical board. His name is Don Kenny. And he does not tolerate any nonsense out of our physicians. You violate the Hippocratic Oath, you're going to lose your license. And up till then, they looked the other way too much of the time. So there's been a significant change. This interface, the way I understand this is, if you're a pharmacist, okay, and you need to report to the pharmacy board, just until not long ago, you would have to log out, contact the pharmacy board, log back in. So now we've got the interface where they don't have to log out and log back in, which makes their life so much easier. I think it's catching on. I mean, Kroger, you know, you don't have Kroger up here, do you? Kroger's a grocery chain, and it's big. And they have done a fantastic job. And the CEO of that chain has been awesome. So all the pharmacies in the Krogers in the state are doing this, and we're trying to find out, is everybody doing it? Because this interface and reporting. The other thing that we did is, this was a couple years ago. I have this lady who runs our Department of Aging, and she is unbelievable. When you assign her to something, you get in her way, she'll run right over you. And I asked her to meet with all the prescribers. And they originally wanted me to mandate a law on how they could prescribe. I said, whoa, wait a minute. Why don't we just get everybody together, get anybody who's involved in prescribing, and see if we can get a voluntary situation. Because if we get voluntary, it's going to be a lot better than if we hammer somebody. And that's what we've done. It's really been working, which is really great, because everybody's understand the problem. Yes?
Well, I understand the importance and value of the prescription drug issue. I think another huge issue that we can't neglect is marijuana.
No, I think that's right.
20% THC is huge.
Yeah.
It is addictive. And a lot of states, and I know Ohio just went through a vote. And
we voted it down.
The legalization of marijuana. But it's going to happen. It's going to come up again. And this is a very big issue. And we also see it, you know, coming in the back door with medical marijuana and the rights of the states, even though it's federally still illegal.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge issue that can't be neglected.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's just that when I look at the nub of the problem and where the most acute problem is, I find it in the other. I'm not going to tell you that doesn't matter. I mean, I was so thrilled when the people of Ohio voted it down.
Well, don't you think that's because it's trackable? The illegal use of marijuana is not as trackable as prescription drug use.
Well, it's just and I don't know enough about what they said about THC levels and all that, but I know that I have found in looking at all the things that we know is that the prescription drug gives you the kind of high that you want to sustain with heroin. That's what I know. I'm not, what they said exactly what I've been saying, which is you don't want to legalize marijuana because you don't want to send a mixed message. Don't do drugs, but by the way, this drug's okay. Look, I mean, one of the perverse ideas about this is, well, we can make money and have more money for our budgets if we legalize it. That's nuts to me, okay? Aren't you all glad I talk just the way I always talk? I mean, nothing's any different. My wife's going to say, John, tone it down. But you know what? I don't agree with that. And now the medical marijuana is a different issue. Now, what I've told people in the state is we can't use it as a back door. But you know, if doctors were to come to me and say, you know, there is an element of that can be used to deal with the problem of seizures, because some of young people they can have like 30 seizures a day. It's something to think about, but it should be controlled, tightly controlled. I don't know what we're going to do on that yet, but the other issue, the fact that we can just look the other way, or like what they're doing in Colorado, I just don't agree with it, and I'm glad Ohio turned it down. And I think Colorado's going to.
Just so you know, Governor, we have passed a medical marijuana here. It's taken like almost 3 years for them to actually get the system in place, but it's very tightly controlled. Yeah. Very tight.
Well, we're probably going to look at it, because if you put that on the ballot, you're likely to pass it, even if it has loopholes so our legislature's beginning. I talked to Speaker Rosenberger about it, and I think they're starting some hearings. We've got to just see what we do on that. But I appreciate what you're saying. Yes, sir.
Governor, I want to thank you for your campaign. It has been about you, not about your competition. You are qualified. I'm one of your delegates, so I hope I see you again. But it has been a wonderful campaign.
Well, by the way, they're coming to trash me. They're already starting. Jeb, I play on the high ground. He's bringing his negativity and his trash. I guess, when you got a lot of billionaire friends, you can go ahead and do stuff like that. But it's all half-truths, and that's just the way politics is. And he warned us in the debate, get ready for half-truths. He didn't say that, but that's what he should have said. But anyway, I have a lot of press around. And they all want to know, what are you going to do to break out? Okay? What am I supposed to do? Lower the bar? Am I supposed to be yelling stuff? And what about my daughters and my wife? My wife said to me yesterday, you have seen the family for 20 minutes since the 3rd of January. Now, if I'm up here, being a goofball, then it isn't worth it to be away from them. Because I'd rather be with them than being a goofball. But if I can raise the bar and get people to realize that, that there is a way to improve our country, you don't have to be a yeller, a screamer, or negative, then I'm proud of what I've done, win or lose, right? Absolutely. Win or lose, it doesn't matter. Because then I can, and I'm going to do my best. And look, I'm like, we all have feet of clay. So I'm not telling you that I don't have the capability of doing something dumb, okay? But I'm going to do my best, because I believe life's short, sir. Thank you for being a delegate. I believe life is short. So I want to have a good legacy. Winning an election is not all that matters in life, because there's a lot of people that watch. Also one that sees everything. I don't want to get crosswise with him, believe me.
We're proud of you.
Thank you. Well, I'm so much appreciate. Last night we come in, there were 50 volunteers at the airport, and they got this car and they had the headlights turned. It was like it was like a movie. They had shined the light on all these volunteers. I got to meet them all and give some of them a hug and get to talk to them about believing that things can be the way we hope they are. That we believe that. I've been around in politics a long time, and my idealism hasn't been chipped one little bit. I am a believer. One of the reporters just asked me, don't you think politics is a zero-sum game? In order for somebody to do well, somebody else has to lose? I said, it's just the opposite. Because if we're in this business to solve problems and help people to rise, everybody wins. Everybody wins. And I have to tell you, like, one of the things that has most happened is we've had some tough court cases in Cleveland. And I've encouraged protests, but not violence. The community came together, the ministers, the mayor, our community leaders, Senator Turner, and we've gotten through it, and we're moving to the next thing. That meant that everybody worked together, and so it was a win-win-win. And we're going to change parts of the system we don't like, but we don't want to be we don't want to be driving negativity. That's what I think. So I very much appreciate you saying that.
Right.
Yes, last one, ma'am. Then I think we're going somewhere else, but I have no idea where. Okay.
Thank you again for coming today, and I love what you just said about family and community, and I think in the presentation you said that, you know, disapproval of adults is what keeps kids not using, is that they know their parents disapprove. We have the schools on board. I work for Katie, and we also have prevention, and so the youth also pointed out that prevention is horribly underfunded. There's also a huge recovery community that needs to be embraced and put into the prevention world so that we can have one mass community working towards shifting the addiction field and what it looks like. So I just want to know if when you become president, if you will put more funding towards prevention, treatment, intervention, and recovery, because prevention and recovery are actually the biggest bang that we can get for our money nowadays.
Well, you know, look, I mean, you don't know this, but I've been absolutely hammered because I brought resources back to Ohio to treat the mentally ill, the drug addicted, and the working poor. In fact, one of the attacks from Jeb on me is that I did this. And you know how I feel? I feel great that we did it. Because we now have the resources there that have freed up the local community to be in a position where they can treat people. And not just those who are poor, but they broadened the circle with people who are in need. And that should speak for itself. Absolutely. This is a national issue. And while I believe we can, look, I balance budgets, both in Ohio and in Washington, you have to have priorities. She said it, they all said it. You know, what do you pay me now or pay me a heck of a lot more later if you don't get on top of these issues. But I want to go back to what she said. It's family, it's community, it's a state, and she'll tell you that this state has changed because of this crisis, because they're now aware of it, and it's a higher and higher priority every day. It's what I hear, right? So yes, of course I'm going to provide the resources because we got to win this battle, and it's so multifaceted. And when the movie comes out on El Chapo, don't go. Sorry, Sean Penn, you're out of luck. Okay, we got to go. Thank you all very much, and I want to thank you. Yes, of course.
Christy, can you take a picture?
I got to hang out there.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah,
really
thank you. All right.
Okay,
Guys,
Nora, Christian, can you
You guys
guys
did
go
a
up
great
to
job.
Nora?
Very, very good.
Where's Troy?
Really articulate.
Troy?
Yeah, I'll take one.
Okay.
That was fantastic. Come on in here.
Where's Troy? Yeah. Okay, so we have 3 other kids that were here.
I'm Mom. I don't want to be a camera.